Hi, my name's Charlie Tottman. I've been an RGT examiner for about the last 5 years. I assess the guitar, bass and ukulele exams. I would say probably memorising as much material as you can if you haven't already. In particular, the rhythm playing studies are a good example, right? So many candidates will kind of use the book, be glued to the book. Actually, I find it's a lot better when the candidate comes in and is able just to play it. Because, you know, let's face it, you've probably played it 100 times. You probably know it better than you think. So trying to get away from using the book where you can. Obviously, there are instances where you're going to need it, but even with some of the pieces, you know, particularly on the rock and the acoustic grades, actually not having the book with you, you're able to concentrate more on the music and less on the page. Obviously, quite a lot of things, but I suppose prompt responses is probably a good place to start. So being able, you know, if you're aiming for the high marks, which I'm sure everyone is, you've got to be able to provide responses that are just quite prompt and clear and confident. You know, if you kind of go an E flat, you stand less chance of getting a high mark. So on the spoken responses as well, try to rehearse your kind of responses. You know, sometimes you know roughly what you're going to get asked. Be confident about what you're saying and try to be relatively concise if you can. No, not at all. It is not the examiner's role to remark upon your technique. It is their role to remark upon how it sounded, however. So, I don't know, to take an extreme example, let's say grade 7 rock exam, you decided to play the whole thing with your thumb, for whatever reason. They're not going to remark on the fact that you used your thumb, but they are definitely going to remark on the fact that let's maybe assume that clarity was lost because you used your thumb. You know, so it's just seeing that distinction. It doesn't really matter how you play the instrument, but I suppose I would say that, you know, it makes sense to make your life easier in the long run by committing to kind of doing, you know, most techniques in as proper way as you can. I would probably talk about the formality of the whole process. So, for example, a lot of my students, if they're having their first exam, I will run a mock exam where I try to make them feel as if they're in an exam. So, you know, there's no conversation, you know, there's no remarks about how they did. There's no sort of, you know, that was all right, that wasn't. That doesn't happen, because often what people will find when it's their first exam is they're very surprised when they don't get any feedback. But you've got to realise that is what an exam is, okay? They're not there to remark on anything else. So yeah, just the formality of the process and being used to that, probably more than anything else. Just don't fight them. You know, you're going to feel nervous in an exam of any sort. You know, it's pretty much an inevitability. You know, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think if you fight them, it kind of compounds and it kind of gets worse. Just accept the fact you're going to feel a bit nervous. It's fine. Everybody does. I think long term, there are things you can do. You know, things like doing as much performing as you can, putting yourself in situations where you don't necessarily feel that at home. You know, depends what level you are, but open mic nights, you know, playing in front of friends, all stuff like that is going to get you more. The only real way you can get more used to nerves is just by being in that sort of environment more often. But yeah, don't fear them. Everybody's the same.